Okay, well, hi, Montana. For all of those who are watching or listening to the City Council meeting, you know by now that we have a tradition of working with the school district and the Rotary Club of Yelm to honor our high school students, and typically it's the high school senior, although the student of the month for May will actually be a junior and moving forward. This is a great opportunity to talk about one of our special students, and we're joined by some of our community business partners, the Rotary Club, obviously, Walmart, Olympia Federal Savings, Pizzeria La Gitana, the Shiplap Shop, Masonry Cafe, Yelm Prairie Lanes, Windermere Real Estate, Scotty Brown agent, in providing some little tokens of our appreciation for the work that the students have put forth. And this is what the nominating committee said about Montana. We are so excited to announce Montana Holloway as our Yelm Rotary City of Yelm April 2020 Student of the Month. Montana is an outstanding athletic training student and an asset to Yelm High School in other ways as well. She is very dedicated to the sports medicine program, logging many volunteer hours above and beyond her requirement. Montana was also an office professional student in the front office and was an invaluable part of the office team, always sporting a bright smile on her face and showing kindness to all around her. Montana will take this passion for helping others into her education after high school while she studies to get her BSN, and then hopefully bring those skills back to Yelm someday and take care of all of us here in Yelm. Montana, thank you so much for what you do to be a part of the Yelm High School family, and good luck to you through the summer and in your educational adventures to come. We will mail you the plaque and some other things, and we'll look forward to seeing you around sometime in Yelm. So a big hand for Montana, please.
Congratulations.
Shaking her hand as she walks by, and we're handing her her plaque. Some things you just can't do virtually, but we appreciate you being with us, Montana, and thanks too to your family for supporting you in your efforts to be such a good student and community member. We appreciate y'all. Okay, and thanks to Rotary. I know some of you are watching tonight too. This is now where we would have public comment, and Grant, you could probably tell best if we have anybody lined up for public comment.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. As some people might come in later on, Grant can watch that attendee list and see if anybody wants to chat in on something that's on the agenda. But we'll move on. We have a consent agenda, but we don't actually have any items on the consent agenda. So we're going to go to new business, and this would take us back to Councilmember Blair. And I would just remind Councilmember Blair that the council is used to getting things brought to them that have some background materials for them to study beforehand. So I'm going to hope that you can explain this in detail and answer a lot of questions about what you want to do here. But could you start off, please, by making the motion that you'd like to have discussed?
I move to resume in-person meetings effective May 26th, which is our next council meeting.
Okay, by our process, I would need a second.
Second.
I heard a second from Councilmember Kaminsky. Is there any discussion? And perhaps it would be best if Councilmember Blair, if you added a little bit more meat to that, and then I see some hands going up that could ask some questions about that.
Yeah, no problem. As far as anything being brought up previously, I know this was discussed at the last council meeting, or was it the last study session actually? It was brought up, and my My concern is like I said, there's a very different dynamic between the in-person and virtual meetings. On top of that, not everyone has the capacity to view and interact with these virtual meetings that possibly would want to. And at the same time, people deserve the capability to come to the meeting and confront council in person. Because like I said, it's completely different than this whole virtual thing we've been doing the last few weeks.
Okay, more discussion. Who would like to speak? See Councilmember Stillwell's hand up, and then DePinto.
So James, when we bring these things up at our council meetings, or you mention something, that's really not bringing it up for discussion. So I just want to clarify. Usually you would have some information of, in this example specifically, how you would deal with distancing, how you would deal with the public and following the rules, the legal laws that are put down by the governor, as well as suggestions and recommendations by the state health department, the county health department. So we're directed by those people. I think it's a terrible idea to go against those, because we're not, we're not doctors. Whether your opinion likes it or not, I personally have my own opinions, but this is not a venue for my opinion. But those are things that we need to talk about. I'm sure you have a plan for it. Go ahead.
Councilmember DePinto, would you allow Councilmember Blair to discuss those things before you make your comment, or would you like to make your comment first?
I would like to make my comment first.
Go ahead, Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wholeheartedly agree with Councilmember Blair in opening this back up. I think we should be leading by example. We're asking our community to start opening back up safely, and I believe we can open up safely in these council meetings. And just like what we were doing prior to going all video conferencing as we're doing now, we were starting to go ahead and take steps. We were spacing out our desks a little bit further. Some of us were wearing masks. I think that including some of those items as a plan would be is a prudent move to do. So I would agree with James or Councilmember Blair, and I hope we pass this. Thank you.
Councilmember Carmody.
So what is the actual rule right now? We're still in phase 1, right? So when does phase two actually starts when? We don't know, right?
We don't know. It won't start before June 1st at this point by the governor's last messaging.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to say that I disagree with Mr. Blair's motion. I think it's a bad idea for council to lead by example in this case. Leading by example in this case is breaking the law. And I don't care whether you like it or dislike it. It's wrong and it's illegal, and telling people that it's okay to go around breaking the law just because council's doing it isn't right. I really think that we should think about whether or not we're setting a good example here.
I have a question. Molly, maybe you would know this. Is this an actual law, or is this
Yes.
a guideline set by the governor?
Yes, it's a law, and if you break the law, you can be found guilty, or you can be accused of a gross misdemeanor. Now, a gross misdemeanor, you can face up to 364 days in prison and $5,000 in fines.
So he wrote it into law.
Yes, it's in RCW. So if all 7 of us, plus the mayor, plus Lori, plus Grant, decide that we're going to just break this law, guess what? Our city has a whole heck of a lot of liability there. I don't think that's fair to ask the city to shoulder, our decision because we think that we should go out there willy-nilly.
So we have no autonomy as a city. No autonomy.
So I'm going to break in here, Molly, if I may. Thank you. Terry, it's pretty simple. We all took an oath of office. You took an oath. I took an oath. We made one thing, a promise to voters when we asked them to elect us to this office, but then you took an oath that said that you would, amongst other things, uphold the laws of the state of Washington. The law of the state of Washington allows the seated governor to make emergency declarations such as Governor Inslee has. That makes it the standing law of the state of Washington. Regardless of anybody else's opinion, the only way to change that law is to have it done legislatively or through the third branch of the government, which would be the judicial branch. And I know some of our legislators have created a lawsuit that would test that. When a higher authority, meaning the courts, makes the determination that this is not a good law, then that law would be overturned. But as present, we are under our oath of office to uphold the laws of the state of Washington, including the governor's stay home, stay healthy order. I hope that helped you understand that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carmody?
Yeah, and just one additional thing, like you said, we took an oath to uphold not just the laws, but the Constitution of the state of Washington. And the Constitution itself designs the whole system to work a very specific way, so that you have the executive branch, you have the legislative branch, and you have the judicial branch. The legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch upholds them or enforces them, and then the judicial branch is the one that decides whether or not they are legal or constitutional laws to begin with. It's not for the people to decide. You know, there's a system in place, and we follow the system for a reason.
So what our Congress people did has had no result as yet, because I know they were all going to bat for this, for opening the state.
That's
But there's
correct.
nothing. You're saying they have to go through a lawsuit in order to challenge his decree?
That is correct. Councilmember DePinto wants to add something into this, though.
Thank you. Might I offer a friendly amendment then? If we should pass this, or the amendment should say that if lawfully allowed by the state of Washington, and I don't agree that we aren't allowed. I'd like to see an actual opinion on that from our city attorney.
What is your friendly amendment? I don't understand what you're saying.
The friendly amendment is to add the clause that should this not be a legal action, then we don't have the law. It takes it back. But if it is a lawful law, if it is allowed under state law, then we should be able to make this decision. That single clause.
I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
Who is going to make that determination? I don't think the city attorney actually has the authority to make that opinion about state law. And if you called the governor's office and got some sort of a waiver of his order so that we could hold the meeting in public, then that would be fine. But I still, I have to think about how that friendly amendment is going to give us time to do anything to act upon that. So you've got me kind of flummoxed here, Joe. How would we go about that? Go ahead.
Sure. So I see yourself, I see the city administrator, I see other city staff inside City Hall conducting city business. I understand why we can't, as city council members, conduct city business as long as we're socially distancing, like yourself is, and like the city manager or administrator is. I don't get what the difference is.
Councilmember Stillwell?
It seems like, and I don't know, I mean, that it's not us because we still fit within the parameters, but if we're opening them up to public, right, let's take the whole amendment or the whole proposal. We're going to have us, we're going to have the public in there, we're going to have staff in there. Pretty soon we have 10, 15, 20 people. So we can social distance, but we can't distance with a room full of people. So I think it's one meeting, right? It's one meeting to go. And I think if we're talking about setting an example, and the example is just abiding by the rule and the law and just dealing with it. That's my opinion. I mean,
Councilmember DePinto?
I move to end discussion.
Well, we don't even have a second on your friendly amendment yet.
We did have a version, Tad, where we all were distanced and there were.
Oh, that's time to freeze up.
I think my
Terry,
minute
while
died.
you're waiting to come back in orbit around the sun, I just want to say that this is a great example of why If we'd had some heads up on this motion to come before council, we could have probably gotten that legal opinion for you and have this answered. But Councilmember DePino has asked for an end to discussion. And so let's see where we are. Councilmember Carmody?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if this does pass, I will not be attending the next city council meeting.
Thank you. And I will also add on that if the council chooses to go against state law and decide to hold the meeting in person, the governor has still closed this facility to the public. So the public would not be able to attend unless the council was able to come up with some sort of a protocol, which we haven't seen yet, that would make it possible to do this. And without a waiver from the governor's office to allow the public to enter this building for the purposes of addressing the city council, I just don't see how that would work. I'll tell you that this administration, as I have said before, my own opinions aside, I'm going to follow my oath of office as I always have, and we'll support the council's decision to have a meeting in person, but it won't be in the city hall. Unless you want to be here by yourself, the public won't be allowed in because of the shutdown order. So you'd have to come up with some sort of protocol that would support that kind of a meeting wherever you would want to have it in person. But I just need to let you know that that's how we're going to handle that. So, James, did you want, you started this whole thing off, and I do want to appreciate Councilmember DePino's request to end discussion, but you've been silent since making the motion. I'd like you to chime in once more if you wouldn't mind.
Mayor Foster, if I can
Isn't
break
there a
in.
motion on it?
Hold on, Grant. Yes?
Isn't there a motion
James?
to end discussion? We can't just talk around that. You got to either continue it or it dies.
JW,
Okay,
if I
so-
could clarify, JW,
Yes, Lori?
if I could clarify, James made the motion and Terry seconded the motion.
That's correct.
We do have a second.
Now, what we have is a friendly amendment to the original motion, which would be to only act on this motion if it was deemed a legal action by our city attorney. Is that your friendly amendment, Mr. DePino? Is there a second to his friendly amendment?
Second.
There's a second from Councilmember Blair. So first, we're going to vote on the second amendment. That's funny. First, we're going to vote on the friendly amendment, and we'll do it by roll call. All in favor of the friendly amendment to the motion, say aye by roll call. Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Carmody.
Nay.
Councilmember Stillwell.
Nay.
Councilmember DePinto.
Aye.
And Councilmember Kaminsky.
Aye. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, I lost my connection. I don't know what happened. But
So the
I'm
ayes,
working on it.
you're back. Thanks, Terry. So the ayes have it. So we now have a friendly amendment to the original motion, which was to reconvene in a live meeting of the city council starting before the governor releases the shutdown order on May 26th, even though it's likely he'll allow that to happen on the 1st of June. But the motion stands as it is. And is there any further discussion, or Councilmember DePino, now that we've had the friendly amendment, you could ask to end discussion again.
So can I get some clarification on that? Did that pass, that amendment?
Yes, it was 3 ayes to 2 nays. Your amendment is on the original motion.
Thank you.
So now is the amended motion. Is there any further discussion?
Sorry, JW.
I just wanted to say, oh, go ahead, Terry.
Did you say that
Councilmember-
you think we would be back online June 1st? Is that what you said, JW?
Under the guidelines as we understand them in phase 2, which is likely to be started June 1st, City Hall could open back up to the public and then we could have live meetings again.
Then it's kind of a moot point for a few days. Okay.
Possibly, probably, yeah. Councilmember DePinto?
I just want to recommend a yes vote and continue to this yes vote. One reason being that that amendment, I believe, will save us should there be something that we find that is not legal here for the state of Washington. 'Cause I don't want us to be in legal trouble either, but I do want us to open up should we be allowed to. And that's all this is asking for with that amendment. It'll allow us to open up if we're allowed to.
And I just want to clarify who you feel is the legal authority to make that opinion, Joe.
Again, Mayor, you're not supposed to be inputting your opinion on this. You're supposed to be
I'm
legal
asking you a
discussion.
question to clarify your
And I've
request.
answered that before, the city attorney.
Okay. Lori,
We've repeated
can you read back the motion as amended, please?
Councilmember Joe DePinto made a friendly amendment to open up to in-person meetings if it is deemed legal by our city attorney. And then it was seconded by James Blair.
Okay. Councilmember Carmody?
I don't think that our city attorney is the end-all legal opinion for this matter. I think that this is something that should be taken up by somebody a little more higher up, I guess you'd say.
Councilmember DePinto?
What are we paying a legal attorney for if not to give legal advice?
Okay, it's a great question, and that's why we retain that attorney. If that attorney says this is not in his expertise and he doesn't feel that he has the authority to make an opinion counter to the governor's orders, is that sufficient for you, or would you then want to have a higher legal opinion?
I don't believe that's part of the motion. It's a pretty simple, straightforward. If he does not believe it's legal, he'll tell us. If he thinks it is legal, he'll tell us. It's a yes or no question. There's no gray area in it.
Okay, so we're just depending on Dilly's opinion at this point.
That's
Who is not a government professional, constitutional scholar.
Then why is he our city attorney then?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe he does things like municipal law, but that's not constitutional law. They're two different things.
Okay. We've had considerable discussion on this. There is an amendment to the motion. Lori has read it back. Does everybody feel like they are ready for the vote on this? Then we'll go with Councilmember Blair, and it's a roll call vote again. How do you vote in favor of the motion? Or how do you vote on the motion, rather?
Aye.
Councilmember Carmody?
Nay.
Councilmember Stillwell?
Nay.
Councilmember DePinto?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kaminsky?
Aye. It's worth asking the question, I guess.
Okay, the ayes have it. We have a motion. We have a decision by the council. We will present this to the city attorney. Pending the city attorney's opinion, we will reach back out to council to let them know this decision, and that will guide us on our advertisement for the upcoming meeting. Fair enough?
Mhm.
Okay. Then that takes us back to our agenda, and there was no other new business, no old business, and so we'll go to City Administrator Michael Graham for his updates.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mhm.
So I will keep my comments to you brief, as I promised I would do at the last couple of meetings, and even in my written update. It's the whole point of trying to send those to you so you can read a lot of information and get some brief highlights from me at these meetings. Just to touch on a couple of those things before diving into another financial update. One of the things we wanted to highlight for the public is that the court is working on reopening, but doing so virtually using remote hearings. So more news and information coming out of that. There's a lot of concern for public gatherings and coming together with the multitudes of people for court hearings and court proceedings. At the same time, they need to happen. So we're working on a solution with IT and coordinating with higher courts. So more news to come there, hopefully by mid-May or early June. Also, you'd be pleased to know that our new officer, Kevin Taylor, is just doing a fantastic job. I gave details of the progress passing the equivalency, doing the FTO. I won't go into more nuances there, but we're just really encouraged by this hire and the progress that he is making being part of the team. As some of you know, there's been information put out by AWC, and I know some of you have expressed interest, but there is the Coronavirus Relief Fund that we are eligible for through the CARES Act to the tune of $274,000. Every eligible city is given an opportunity to be eligible for about $30 per person. We should expect a contract proposal from the Department of Commerce in the next couple of weeks. And internally, we've had some conversations of utilizing those funds to respond to the COVID emergency, both from internal expenses and then to external investments that could be made to support the community. We'll be teeing up some options for you to consider. And council, obviously, we'd welcome your recommendations there. In that latest briefing that I provided, there's several PowerPoint links with questions and answers and FAQs and information from the Treasury Department. So please use that to guide you in formulating thoughts and ideas as we go forward. Councilmember DePino?
Thank you. I was hoping some of those discussions you're having with internally with the executive branch, if you could bring forward to some of those, if there's an email shared or anything like that, some of the ideas, I'd appreciate if I could get a copy, and I know some of the other council members probably would too, just to know what's going on, what you're thinking about. I'm sure we'll be supportive and all that, but it'd be nice to be looped in on that.
Yeah, no, as I just said, we're brainstorming those ideas and we'll bring them to council when we formulated them, and then obviously would look for your ideas too. So it'd be a collective conversation when the time's right. We're still kicking them around.
My apologies. I thought you said you already had some, you're already discussing ideas. My bad.
We're just brainstorming right now. So just encourage council to brainstorm the same, and then obviously we'll go through the process of, sending them to a committee, probably the finance committee, and making a recommendation to the council now that the committee structure has reconvened virtually. The last thing I want to touch on before diving into some of the numbers is we're really excited that our new revenue forecast model will be out. I sent you a sample via email. I've got some updated information here that I've included in a PowerPoint slide just to show you some of the many tools and functionalities, but it'll be very helpful to present not only real-time data, but historical data and multiple different data points as we look at different scenarios to navigate the impacts that are on the horizon from us financially and economically. So far, everything remains on track. But as everyone knows from just a basic understanding of finances, when you look at numbers in April, we're actually seeing the results from February. So there is a lag in the reporting and the numbers that we're seeing in addition or above and beyond the delays that different government entities have allowed. Like we've allowed for delays in the B&O, other entities have allowed, the county's allowed a delay in property tax reporting, et cetera. And so there's a natural lag in financial reporting that will just be compounded by the other extensions that we've put on. So more to come, but we'll keep looking at the data and sharing it with you. And as you also saw, we're adding another layer to the monthly packet that Heidi puts out at the end of the month after the numbers are all accounted for, the journal entries are verified, and you'll continue to receive your monthly financial packet that has all the financial data in it, but we'll also give you that additional snapshot of a breakdown of the general fund revenue. So you can look at that real time at the same time that we are, which is straight out of bias. With that, I just want to touch on a couple of things just financially. Grant, can you queue up the PowerPoint? There it is. Thank you. So a lot of this information is the same as you have seen. Oh, I just lost it, Grant. There it is.
I'm going to have to remain presenter to do so just tell me when to advance the slides.
Okay. And so council, just for context, I've given you the same presentation. And so a lot of it's going to be in the exact same format because the goals remain the same. The approach remains the same. We're still in the tier one of trying to conserve as many expenses as we can, which our team is doing a good job of. And we're continuing to monitor the data. And so this is just updated numbers from what you saw last time, which build on the monthly financial reports and the data that you get every month in your council packet. So Grant, go ahead. And go. So the only addition to this slide, our overarching objective remains the same: protect the health of the employees and essential services for the community. The only update is the reflection of the CARES Act being put into play, which is reflected in that bottom bullet, and the revenue that will be the income that will be able to provide, not only to the city but also to the community. And as I mentioned, more conversations will come as we get that contract from the Department of Commerce and continue to get guidance on how to utilize and invest in those funds to support the community. Next slide, Grant. You've all seen this before. It just can't help but to continue to remind everyone that the recovery will look more like the turn of a dial than the flip of a switch. They also, I don't know if you read the recent Wall Street Journal report of what the dip is that is projected. Folks have been talking about it looking like an L or a V or a W. The new analogy or metaphor is that it will look more like the Nike swoosh, where you'll have a sharp decline and then a long, slow, steady recovery process. So again, anyone's guess is as good as anybody else's, but that's the latest that we're seeing from the Wall Street Journal. We're keeping in touch with other cities. And the best analogy that I heard was from the friends, and I won't say what the city's name is, but I said, how did you come to your anticipated revenue shortfalls and the actions that you're brainstorming that you'll eventually take action on? And she said, well, it's a combination of two things. One, we threw a dart at a dartboard, and then we got out a scalpel, but it was a very dull scalpel, and that's what that's our strategy and our approach. I thought that was a good metaphor here. Next slide, Grant. So here's an update on April. Last month, this slide had the updated information from March. And so as you can see, the information coming in from April actually reflects the revenue that is coming in from February. The bulk of this is from the property tax, which, as I said in my email, we just received, which was good news. It's not completely on point where we projected it to be, but that's understandable because of the delays in the property tax payment and allocations that we talked about earlier. So there's the summary of the expenditures, which we talked about last time. Next slide, Grant. Here's the information that we talked about with the new information that was not actually in those budget reports that you got. And this is the new numbers from the property tax. As we talked about, it is short. There's a variance of 9% there, but we expect that to be coming in at least Q3, Q4 for sure. We received property tax, just as a reminder, that was the big spiky thing in that graph that was in previous presentations. We receive our property tax twice a year. Next, Grant. Here's the information on the sales tax. Sales tax is actually coming in slightly above our revenue projections, which is positive. Again, we anticipate that this will be even higher in the coming months. This is our sales tax revenue that we receive in April from February, and we should be receiving an uptick that's even greater in future forecasts or in future revenue updates for March and April as the months go on. But again, we don't know, and so we're just continuing to watch the data closely. Next, we'll look at B&O. So B&O is slightly down. This is something that we would anticipate being around 43%, as you can see there on the bottom. Historically, the number that we have there of receiving about 25% of our total budgeted revenue doesn't include several large payments from two different entities that are out there, and plus the late payments from Q4. And so this number, albeit short, again, should be made up, that delta, as the months go on. It's also important to remind folks, as we see in the first bullet, that we've delayed the B&O tax payments for businesses that do request it, allowing them to make Q1 and Q2 payments in July 31st. Next slide, Grant. This is our tiered response, just summarizing what we're doing now. There's 3 tiers that we've outlined and are planning on. I know you've seen this several times before. Next slide, Grant. This is the fun part. It highlights the tool. As you saw in the email that I sent out to you all, it had a report that was generated by our new forecasting tool. What we've done is we've gone through and we've updated it. And so this actually reflects the current numbers and reinforces everything that I just shared with you, which is everything that you've seen in your monthly council financial reports, which is everything that I just shared in the email with you, and the budget summary information from our bias system. But it puts it in a real simple, easy to understand dashboard, which we've color coded, that you may remember from the Gantt chart, which tracks the progress of our projects and initiatives. It's the same stoplight formula. If it's yellow, it means it's falling slightly behind. If it's red, it means it's way off track. And if it's green, it means that it's on track and on target. Obviously, we expect this to move. The ones we're watching are the yellows, and we know that the funds will continue to decline over time to some degree. That's the unknown aspect, but we'll continue to watch this and track this and plan for different scenarios using this forecast tool, so we can make adjustments when the council comes together and does your quarterly budget update, and then we'll dive into our biennial budget process here soon. Yes, Councilmember Carmody.
Yeah, hi, thanks. This is a really awesome summary. Thank you for this. I love this. I had one quick question. On the very far right-hand side, you have other objects. What does other objects mean?
Well, let me actually get into the other. Let me go into 2 other slides, because it'll keep popping up, and then I'll explain it comprehensively. So Grant, could you go to the next slide? The next one's the bar graph that we looked at. So here's revenues. This one actually compares the previous year to the current year. Well, that is nice. It's not very helpful from my perspective, frankly. So again, this is just a sample, but it is the real life information. Normally, when you look at previous years, you want to look 3 to 5 years out so you can really see a trend. We don't know what happened last year, if it was a good year, a bad year, if there were any anomalies. We can see trends when we look further back, and this system has the capability of doing that. And then the next slide is the same thing, looking at expenditures, I believe. And then here's your other again, Councilmember Carmody, and this includes funds that were transferred to other accounts. So you've got your cumulative reserve fund, the PSB, the Public Safety Building bond payment, the street fund, things that go from the general fund to other accounts and other funds. They're all captured in that other bucket there. But no, good question. Next slide, which I think wraps it up. Yeah, so this just highlights the next steps. Again, emphasizing that this data is preliminary. The information that you get at the end of the month in your monthly financial packet has been reviewed, verified, accounted for by Heidi and her team. So this is just the real-time numbers. There may be some errors or some slight discrepancies and bars code adjustments, journal entries, things of that sort. But the bottom line is It's real-time information. It's the best that we have. It will change tomorrow and it'll change the day after that. But we just want to get in a cadence of giving this information to you regularly, so that when you get your monthly financial report, you can have at least the latest information before it's finalized and approved. And as I shared with you in my latest update, the Council Finance Committee is going to be able to look at more of the features of this at their meeting on Thursday. And then we'll do a presentation with the whole council. And really the key thing is that we need from council is there's a lot that this revenue forecast tool can do. And what would be helpful is for you to come together as a team and say, all right, here's the types of information that we want to receive. Here's the frequency that we want to receive it. And here's the metrics or the indicators that we really want to pay attention to. Because the reality of it is you're looking at it from one lens, from the legislative lens. It's going to be different than the way that staff and department directors look at it, which is going to be different than the way the mayor looks at it as the executive and the CEO. And so the best information that you can give us as the finance committee looks at it and the council as a whole, we can build a dashboard that is produced and live and provided to you on a regular basis. At the same time, we can also put it up on the website. So there's lots of benefits to having this functionality, and looking forward to showing with you. Heidi's done a great job of not only reconciling all of our accounts from the past. As you know, she had to go back for our previous audit, go back to 2014 and reconcile the numbers. But then she had to take all the information from Encode and all the information that wasn't inputted into BIAS, put all that in there. And now all of our financial information is in BIAS, which can produce the reports that I sent to you. But that BIAS will also upload to this forecasting tool, which will help us have complete information, both presently and historically for context, looking back as far as you want to. So Heidi really has done yeoman's work in putting this together, and look forward to sharing with you on Thursday. With that, I think that concludes the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. Councilmember DePino.
Thank you. Could we get this presentation emailed?
Sure. Yeah, just like I've done the last two, I'll send it out. I'll send it out tonight, actually.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council?
Kudos to Michael and Heidi for the work they've done on this in short order. I know council had been asking for something a little bit more meaty like this, but they also had to develop a new program, work with a new program. So they put a lot of work into this. It's very easy to see. But of course, as Michael and Heidi have both said, we won't know until we know what the actual impact of the revenues are, but this way we can track it pretty carefully. So thank you, Michael, for that. Do you have more on your report?
That concludes my report, council.
Very good. So we will go on to council member updates, and we'll start with council member Blair.
I haven't had any meetings, but it looks like finance committee is resuming on Thursday. I believe that was what the email said. And SWAC has a virtual meeting coming up as well. So I should have some info on that next time.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councilmember Carmody, please.
So I attended the intercity transit meeting via GoToMeeting, and it was really good to see everybody's smiling faces. They have recorded 10,000 different individual rides, giving people rides to and from work and to and from essential services without being on the fixed route buses. Those are the rides that you call in and ask for a reservation. So that's a lot of rides. They're doing a great job with a lot of pressure, from the public. They are having a service change preview, mostly around South Puget Sound. That will be in September 2020. These students are being made aware of that, and they'll have a chance to voice in. It really is just a streamlining of the procedure, because they go around in the circles there, and it just makes it a lot easier to drive. other than that, they're really not doing a whole lot. They are having a public hearing for the transportation improvement plan on June 3rd, if all goes well as far as the phasing goes. I thought it was really interesting because they do require a yearly public hearing for their transportation improvement plan. And I don't know if we actually hold a public hearing for that, Mayor. I know that we do have the staff update us on the transportation improvement plan, but I was wondering if that's something that maybe we could look into in the future. No, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. Just something to put on the drawing board. And finally, you know, I was a little disappointed with this vote that was just held, especially Councilmember DePinto's suggestion that we take this to the city attorney, especially because the city attorney does cost, what, $230, $250 an hour. And so in this time of, you know, economic uncertainty, I think it's really unprofessional to squander money by asking the city attorney for an answer that we know will say no. Because he's gonna say no, don't break the law. No city attorney is gonna say, yeah, it's okay to go break the law. I think it's irresponsible to go spend money asking him to research this and then give us an answer. You know, I know that that's what we pay him to do, but I think this is a silly waste of money. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Carmody. We'll go to Councilmember Stillwell.
Yes, last week, Councilmember Kaminsky and I attended the economic development meeting, and it was really good trying to refocus. And I won't want to take all her thunder because she gives such a great report. But we had a great discussion, and we revisited the downtown corridor plan, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And Terry can finish. And then tomorrow I have a emergency management meeting virtually, and then on Thursday I have a study meeting, and I have one more meeting next week. So lots of meetings coming up. Finally getting in the swing of this thing. So thank you. That's it.
Very good. Councilmember DePinto.
All right. Sorry, still muted. Thank you, Mayor. I watched the 60-second airlift wing. He did the flyover of the Yelm Medical Plaza and got to chat with some of the nurses they were honoring. It was a pretty cool sight. Able to bring them lunch, the nurses lunch at least, from Puerto Vallarta. So helped the local business and appreciated some of the things that the nurses did. It was great chatting with them. Participated in the Lackness Elementary Parade last week as well. Drove my wife around as she waved and interacted with her students. Pretty cool. Participated in some AWC webinars, and we'll be participating in the AWC Small City Connector tomorrow. And lastly, I did the Yelm School Zoom into Career, talked about my career, not as a city council member, my professional career as a lobbyist, and it was great. Loved the opportunity, and I know, Mayor, you did yours as well, and I encourage everyone that could do it in here. I know there's a lot of good professionals in here that have interesting career paths, and the students will love to hear it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Grant, I'm assuming we still don't have Councilmember Wood? Okay.
Correct.
No,
Okay,
he's
thank you.
dealing with a medical issue for one of his animals.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everything goes well there. Councilmember Kaminsky.
Joe, thanks for the reminder on the planes. I must have been snoozing when JW told us the time, but those guys scared the crap out of me because they flew right over my house. And I looked out the window, there was a gigantic shadow in my yard, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? But anyway, it was pretty cool. I attended the EDC meeting with Tammy and Tad. And yes, I just think that when we come online, it's going to be very soon, I know, it would be the perfect time to kick off a revitalization, a rejuvenation of the city, even if it's a really slow start. And this is an overwhelming project, but I was just looking at some of the things we could do rather inexpensively to beef up the downtown corridor, even just starting at the main intersection and going in the first block, just that one block. So of course, you know, the simple things to create vitality and pedestrian traffic is maybe getting some benches and putting them in specific places along the sidewalk, getting some planters. Steve Craig has started the downtown plan at Christmas with the lights. I mean, if everybody had little LED lights in their windows that were lit at night, it would create something really pretty on the street at night. Little things like that. I've talked to some of the shop owners. People are very open to it. I've talked to the paint people. People are willing to donate and give us good prices on things. So it's just a matter of coordinating anything really to start beautifying any of those old buildings. So that's what I'm trying to do, slowly but surely. If anybody has any good ideas, let me know. And, you know, of course, we're following that plan. The other thing that's not expensive is that Wayfinders signage. Oh, and Tammy said we could also get funds in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. Say we were buying paint for a building, that they would be able to help us. So it's, again, just the beginning of looking into all of this stuff. Yes, Tad?
You forgot the most important, exciting thing that we talked about.
The arch. The arch is going to be the big first plan, the big first one on the docket. But in addition, we're doing little things too. But yeah, so we're going to open the conversation, just get something rolling to create some beauty downtown.
Okay, beautiful. Before I go on my list of things, I just do want to make a distinction mentioned by Council Member DePinto. The difference between opening up our city building to the public and having staff working in the building are two different things. We have had most of our employees working remotely, and that's worked out very well, but we're slowly bringing some of them back in and testing the waters to see how safe that can be, including myself and city administrator from time to time. And we're working on that so that when we do get full steam ahead, and we're working with our department heads to make sure they understand what the new normal will look like in their departments, and some of their employees may stay working remotely for part of the week. We'll be ready for that, and including modifications to our facilities to make sure that when customers do come in, that they're not going to be, spitting and stuff on our staff by accident, like seen in some of the stores. So we're putting all of that stuff in place, and when we're ready, we'll be able to open up fully to the public when the governor says it's okay to do so. You have a comment, Councilmember DePinto?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I never said that we should open it to the public. I said we should have our council meetings there. So you incorrectly said something that you thought I said, but I didn't say. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the council meetings in public would have to be opening up the building so that we could allow the public to come in and talk to the council. So that's what I inferred from what you were trying to say there. So although Michael Graham talked a little bit about the $274,000 that's coming through CARES Act 2, just keep in mind that we're still waiting for a specific letter of contract from Commerce. We've got better guidelines now, and we do have some really exciting ways that we can spend some of that money. It is not a grant in that we don't just get a check put into our account for $274,000 and get to spend it willy-nilly. We do have to have this contract, and we have to demonstrate how we're spending it within the guidelines. Anything that we're not able to use will go back to the state and hence to the feds at some point. So more to be said on that. One other thing I just want to make clear, the distinction between the legislative and the executive branches of our government. So many people were quick and excited about declaring an emergency for their communities. And as you know, I did not declare an emergency for our city because this was more of a response to an event that we've been looking forward to for, not in a positive way, but we've been planning for this type of thing for many years. And the only thing declaring an emergency would have given me the authority to spend money without asking permission or guidance from the council, and I don't want to do that. The way we're going to do things here is we're going to bring these things forward through the Finance Committee, the Government Committee, your ideas, my ideas, Michael Graham's ideas. we're going to use the opportunity to discuss this as a group and then move forward with a consensus on the best way to use these funds. And I hope you can appreciate my effort to make sure that we're doing these things transparently and collaboratively. The good news on the Yelm Farmers Market, that I'll tell you what, our manager, John Jameson, he doesn't work for the city. He works for the Yelm Food Co-op, who runs the farmers market, has done a fantastic job of working with the health department. The restrictions were so severe through a lot of discussion with our representative from the health department. They've loosened those up, not in an unhealthy way. When you see, and I'll forward this to you, the plan that they have to reopen the farmers market on May 23rd, you are going to be impressed. I wish all of our retailers in the Yelm area would follow the same guidelines that the Yelm Farmers Market is going to do. If they did, then yeah, we would be ready to open up right now, everybody. But unfortunately, I'm not seeing that from all the retail establishments in town. And I hope that they do come to the farmers market and see how you do it right with masks and gloves and distancing and hygiene and so forth, so that we can convince the governor that opening up earlier is a good idea. Farmers Market's going to do it on May 23rd. I would recommend that you come. There'll be about 12 vendors all doing fresh produce, and they will have a food truck. Interestingly, one of the restrictions was the farmers market couldn't serve hot food out of the kitchen, but they can have a food truck outside. So we're excited about that coming to town. Anyway, so as you probably know, this is Police Week. Every week of the year we're celebrating one group or another. In this particular form of honoring police, the national movement is to honor law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty, and their motto is "Heroes Live Forever." The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund will have a candlelight vigil on May 13th at 5 p.m. our time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where they'll be adding 307 more names to the wall. You can join in and view that on Facebook or on YouTube at NLEOMF, the initials for National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. This is also Nurses Week, and as you've seen, we've had several different tributes to them. The 62nd Airlift Wing was tremendous in coming to the South Sound medical communities, and we appreciate them quickly adapting their flight plan to include Yelm. It was quite a spectacle. And also, you might notice as you come into town from the Southworth Elementary side of town, you're going to see a new banner flying. This was presented to the city by the Committee to Preserve the Historic Yelm Water Tower. They got private donations together, had that banner put up, and it says #WeGotThisYelm. And you're going to see that repeated often as we use that as a positive message to move forward as a community. Looking forward to that. And lastly, I just want to make sure we've all had a chance to welcome Cody Colt, former city council member, to his new position as Public Works Director. He hit the ground at a full sprint. He was working with our team today from 7 a.m. until he left just a few minutes before the council meeting started. Just doing a great job, and we're really happy with this relationship going forward. Councilmember Carmody?
Have we had any applications yet on that for his position?
Oh, I was confused there. Yeah, we hired him. No, you meant to replace him on council. Yeah, we need to push that out, folks. I know that I've asked Brianna to do a little bit more of that on our Facebook and city page and bring it up higher visibility on our city page. The deadline is the 22nd, as you set. We have received 2 applications, and one of them has already been pulled by the applicant. So at this point, we just have 1, and we certainly hope to see more come in.
Oh, JW, just a quick correction. The farmer's market is Bounty for Families, not the Yelm Co-op. Just-
Thank you, very similar. The Bounty for Families, I appreciate that correction, Terry.
Thanks.
Oh, okay, so that ends my report. Any other good of the order or?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, that was kind of a unanimous move to adjourn, so we are adjourned. Thank you to staff for the support and getting the meeting going and streaming and so forth. We'll see you all next meeting.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Grant.